Welcome everyone to the Financial Aid Petitions presentation brought to you by the Student Financial Aid and Scholarships Office. We understand that the information our office receives does not always represent a student's most current financial situation, and sometimes a family's financial situation may change while a student is enrolled. This presentation serves to inform students and families on the various types of financial aid petitions that are available so that students can provide the most accurate information and have their financial aid package reevaluated. Today we will review 3 different types of petitions and talk about the necessary steps to complete these petitions. The first one we'll talk about is the Financial Aid Revision Petition, then the Budget Increase Petition, and lastly, the Dependency Override Petition. Students who want to be considered for financial aid would complete the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA. FAFSA opens up every year on October 1st, and it does require students to be a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen. For more information on who is eligible to complete a FAFSA, you can visit the studentaid.gov website. Now, the FAFSA captures a family's household and financial information, and from this information, an expected family contribution, or the EFC, is calculated. The EFC is an index number that colleges and universities use to determine how much students may receive in most forms of financial aid. The lower the EFC, the more financial need a student has, and therefore may be eligible for need-based aid. Now, most of the financial information required on the FAFSA comes from completed tax returns from 2 years ago, and a lot can happen with the students' and parents' finances within a 2-year period. So what happens if your FAFSA doesn't reflect your current circumstances? Well, if a student has extenuating circumstances, they can submit a financial aid revision petition with our office. A revision petition allows you to submit documentation that reflects your current financial situation, which our office can review and reevaluate your FAFSA application. The goal here is to reduce a student's EFC based on the information submitted, which may result in eligibility for need-based financial aid like the Pell Grant or subsidized loan. This does not result in additional scholarships or an updated cost of attendance. The various types of circumstances that our office can consider includes loss of employment, death of parent or a spouse, divorce or separation, change in marital status, and so on. If your circumstances don't fall within one of these categories, feel free to contact our UF One-Stop office to see if a revision petition is the right option for you based on your unique situation. Some examples of circumstances that we cannot consider includes standard living expenses, mortgage payments, credit card, car payments, vacation expenses, and all other discretionary expenses. So what does the process look like? First, you want to have a completed FAFSA on file with our office. Then you'll need to complete the petition form available on our website. Through the online form, you'll include any supporting documents as well as a written explanation detailing your situation. Once submitted, our office will receive the petition, review the documentations provided, and notify students through their UF email address of the petition decision. This process can take about 2 weeks. Documentation is necessary for your petition to justify the potential revisions made to your file. So if your petition is missing supporting documentation, it cannot be reviewed and it will be denied. When completing your petition form, be sure to review the types of documentation needed for your situation. For example, if you're petitioning for loss of employment, you'll most likely have to provide your most current tax return information or unemployment benefits. If you're petitioning due to a divorce or separation, documentation of the divorce agreement is necessary as well as a copy of both parties' income information. After a petition is received and reviewed, there are 3 possible outcomes. 1. The petition is approved. If approved, the student's FAFSA will be updated, which will result in a lower EFC and may result in eligibility for need-based aid. 2. The petition requires additional information. In this case, the student would be notified through email of the documentation being requested, and the student will have an opportunity to submit that documentation to determine an approval or denial. And the third option is that the petition is denied. In this scenario, no changes could be made to the student's FAFSA based on the information submitted. If, however, a student's circumstances change, a new petition can be submitted. The next type of petition is the budget increase petition. Now, before we go into detail, let's first talk about the cost of attendance. Every institution has what's called a cost of attendance that reflects estimated educational expenses a student may incur in an academic year. The cost of attendance typically includes estimated costs for tuition, books, housing, food, personal expenses, and so on. In addition to providing information to students on how much it costs to attend UF, the cost of attendance is also used by our office to determine how much financial aid we can award a student. Students receiving federal financial aid cannot be awarded over their cost of attendance budget. Due to special circumstances, however, some students may experience higher expenses in their cost of attendance components than other students. So what can you do when your actual expenses exceed your estimated cost of attendance? Well, students can submit a budget increase petition. The budget increase petition allows our office to consider educational expenses that exceeds the standard cost of attendance. If approved, the student's cost of attendance will be increased, creating more room in the student's budget for additional aid. Keep in mind, however, that an approved petition does not add additional aid to the student's file. It only creates room in the student's budget. Students with an approved petition typically request additional loan funds or an increased work-study limit. Various types of expenses that our office can consider includes tuition and fees that exceeds the standard cost of attendance, books and supplies that exceed the cost of attendance, required field trips, childcare expenses, UF health insurance charges, and so on. Circumstances that we cannot consider include late fees, credit card payments, car insurance, car purchase or lease payments, personal family trips, and expenses that do not fall within the educational cost of attendance. So what do you need to do to complete the process for the budget petition? Well, first you want to make sure you have a completed FAFSA on file. You'll want to complete a petition form, which is also available on our website. And on that petition form, you'll want to include all supporting documents for your situation. Once submitted, the Financial Aid Office will receive the packet and review it, and the decision will be sent out. Keep in mind that budget adjustments cannot be made until after the drop-add period for each semester. All required documentation must be submitted for review process, and once a decision is made, students will be notified through their UFL email address. This process can also take about 2 weeks to complete. Similar to the revision petition, supporting documentation is required to justify the potential cost of attendance increase made on your file. When completing your petition form, be sure to review the types of documentation needed for your situation. For example, if you're petitioning for an increase in your housing budget, be sure to provide a current lease agreement or mortgage statement. Keep in mind that the expenses must occur during the period of enrollment, and it must exceed the standard cost of attendance. After a petition is received and reviewed, there are 3 possible outcomes. The petition may be approved, in which the student's cost of attendance is updated. The petition may require additional information, in which the student will be notified and will have an opportunity to submit documentation for approval or denial. Or the petition is denied, in which case no changes can be made. If, however, a student's circumstances change, a new petition can be submitted. The last petition we will discuss is the dependency override petition. And this petition is specifically for undergraduate students who the Department of Education considers as dependents. Let's first talk about what dependent versus independent students are. When completing the FAFSA application, it will ask a series of questions to determine dependency status. Some questions may include, are you married? Are you a graduate student? Are you a veteran? Are you 24 years old? And so on. If any of these questions apply to you, you will be considered an independent student and will not be required to provide parent information on the FAFSA. If none of these questions apply to you, then you will be considered dependent and will be required to provide parent income information on the FAFSA application. Now, there are some extenuating circumstances where students are considered dependent but are not able to provide parent income information on the FAFSA. So what do you do if you can't obtain parent information? With dependency override, third-party statements are required for the petition. Students will need to submit 2 or more letters from third-party adults with personal knowledge of the situation and can verify the student's circumstances. They cannot be related nor reside at the student's address, and at least 1 letter should come from a third-party professional, such as a guidance counselor, physician, or social worker. Be sure letters include as much detail as possible, as well as contact information for follow-up. So you've heard me say this before, and I'll go ahead and say it again. Supporting documentation is required to justify the potential changes being made on your file. Without supporting documentation, we will not be able to review your petition. With the dependency override petitions, be sure to provide details of your living situation, as well as any additional supporting documentation that is applicable to your situation. Similar to the previous petitions, once a dependency override petition is received and reviewed, there are 3 possible outcomes. If approved, the student's dependency status will change from dependent to independent, and parental information will be omitted from the FAFSA, which may allow the student to be eligible for need-based aid. If the petition is denied but additional documentation is needed, the student will be notified through their UFL email address and will have an opportunity to submit additional documentation. If a petition is denied, no changes can be made. The student will remain dependent and will be required to submit parental information on the FAFSA. If, however, a student's circumstances change, a new petition can be submitted. Now, let's discuss how to complete your petitions. All petitions can be found and submitted on our financial aid website at sfa.ufl.edu/forms. The completion process is generally the same for all 3 petitions, but we're going to look at the financial aid revision petition as an example. So on our financial aid website, when you click on the financial aid revision petition, you'll be met with this page, and at the bottom, you'll be able to agree to the terms and conditions and then select continue. Once that's completed, you'll be able to enter into the actual financial aid revision petition form. At the top, you'll enter your UFID and your name. Be sure to input the correct UFID. Our office cannot upload petitions with an incorrect UFID. You'll have to submit a new application if that occurs. So be sure to input the correct information at the top. Once that's completed, you'll select the circumstances that's applicable to your situation, review the documentation that's required for that circumstance, and then upload those documentation by selecting the yellow box next to your circumstances. Next, you'll provide written explanation of your circumstances. Be sure to include as much details as possible, including dates and how this situation has impacted you. At the bottom of the form, you will sign the petition electronically and upload any additional documentation to your petition. Once that's completed, you'll click Sign and submit your petition. Our office will receive your petition packet for review, and once it's been reviewed, an email notification will be sent out to your UFL email address notifying you of the decision. So here's a summary of the different types of petitions that we've gone over in this presentation. If you have extenuating circumstances that have impacted your household and finances that are not reflected on the FAFSA, you'll want to consider submitting a revision petition. If you have incurred educational expenses that exceeds the estimated cost of attendance, you may want to consider submitting a budget increase petition. And if you're considered a dependent student but have an unusual and exceptional circumstance that may cause you to be independent, you'll want to consider submitting a dependency override petition. All 3 petitions can be submitted online on our website. Be sure to have a completed FAFSA on file, include any supporting documentation, as well as written statements to explain your situation. Once submitted, our office will review your information and will notify students of the decision through the UFL email address. Now, before we end this presentation, we did want to share some information if you are a Pell Grant recipient. Pell Grant recipients are eligible for a monthly discount on broadband internet service. For more information, you can scan the QR code on your screen. If you have any questions, our one-stop office is here to help. They are available Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. You can speak with someone in person at Kreiser Hall, or you can speak with someone through the phone or through Zoom.